Another beautiful day for a wingy. What's going on, guys? Happy Saturday to you. Welcome to the podcast. Hope you guys are having a good one. We got a lot to get into today. We got some wrestling news, some pretty heavy wrestling news to get into, and some wrestling results. Going to talk about Smackdown, going to talk about Dynamite. Big news coming out of the Janelle Grant lawsuit and the Vince McMahon and John Laurinaitis situation. Wingy, what's going on, guys? We're not too loud, are we? We're going to be talking about that. We're also going to be talking about Mariah May heading to WWE. We've got some other wrestling news to get into as well, and it's just going to be a general discussion about what we missed this week. Now, last time we were here, it was Monday night. We were here live for a Raw review, so we discussed everything that took place this past Monday. But tonight, we're going to catch up on AEW's side of things. Pretty good Dynamite this week. Again, not going to review the whole show, just kind of touch on the key points, specifically what's going on between Ospreay, Hangman Page and Swerve, and Mercedes Moné and Toni Storm. Last night on SmackDown, pretty mediocre show, I have to say. These 3-hour shows, by the way, aren't going anywhere. We're going to be talking about that as well. And even though, you know, the Cena and Logan and Jay and Cody segment wasn't horrible. We had a couple of Money in the Bank qualifiers last night as well. Wyatt 6 kicked some ass. But aside from that, pretty lackluster show. And going forward to have to go through these 3-hour Friday night SmackDowns every week, I think that WWE is going to run the risk of severely watering down their stuff. But apparently USA Network is very happy with the 3-hour SmackDowns and want them to continue. So we're going to talk about Mariah, Johnny Ace. We're going to talk about Vince McMahon potentially buying back WWE and a new company that he has started. We're also going to talk about the NXT call-ups. Sounds like 3 big names are headed to the main roster now, maybe to make room for the lovely Mariah May, who should be on her way in any moment. And like I said, we'll run through SmackDown, Dynamite, look ahead to Money in the Bank and All In, and discuss all of the details surrounding that. In addition to that, anything you guys want to get into in the chat today, we will also discuss. Let me know if my volume is too high or anything like that for you. I've been working with some new equipment this week. Got a new webcam earlier on in the week that we tested on Monday. I finally broke down after 15 years of doing YouTube and bought an audio interface. So I'm just kind of now learning how to use it, but
what you'll be able to see is that I'm going to start fucking with this thing and playing with it.
But right now, I have no idea what I'm doing. So just bear with me here, but I figured it was time to graduate to a big boy. I've been dying to switch my mic over to XLR for quite some time. So just kind of polished up the behind-the-scenes stuff here. So let me know if you have, any issues with your audio or anything like that. Tried my best to test everything, but the longer I go, the more understanding I'm going to have for this type of stuff. So just bear with me here, but we're trying to get all professional up in here and do this thing right. So anyway, that's kind of what's on tap for this afternoon. I'm going to cruise over here to the chat, say hello to everybody, and then we will dive into this week's business. Do want to let you guys know that tomorrow we are going to be back for our classic watch-alongs. Feels like it's been a couple of weeks since we did a watch-along due to pay-per-views and whatnot, and I wasn't sure which June-related pay-per-view we were going to do. I was looking at the King of the Rings that we haven't done, which I think there are only like 2 left, 2001, 2002. I don't think we've done either one of those. We've knocked out a lot of the Judgment Days and Bad Bloods, so I went ahead and looked at WCW's side of things and some Great American Bashes, and I decided that tomorrow we are going to watch Great American Bash 1998. Hulk Hogan and Bret Hart actually team up. You have no idea how painful it is for me to look at that thumbnail, to look at the two of them all buddy in the NWO just 7 or 8 months, maybe 9 months, something like that, after the Montreal Screwjob. Greg was still not over it. I was still really struggling with that whole thing. So tomorrow we are going to watch WCW Great American Bash. Pretty interesting card and a lot of matches on that thing. So join us tomorrow, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific, and we will be here watching that. Most likely on Monday there will not be a Raw review. We got a very great and interesting Money in the Bank qualifier, though. AJ Styles and CM Punk are going to share a ring for the first time in like 20-something years, which is crazy. It's going to be AJ, Punk, and El Grande Americano in a Money in the Bank qualifier. So Monday night does have an interesting match, but we might not be here for a review. I am going to give you guys, however, Money in the Bank predictions sometime this week. I'll probably drop those around Thursday, so keep a lookout for that. And then 1 week from tonight, we will be here watching Money in the Bank together. And after the show, we will stick around and review it. And then 1 week from tomorrow, I think we're back for another classic watch-along because I don't think there's another pay-per-view going on Sunday. So another big weekend coming up next weekend. So just wanted to make you guys aware of that. Let's cruise to the chat. Also, I want to make a point to let you guys know about this new community tab that's up there. If you see right at the top of the chat, you have that community deal there, and it's like a leaderboard. So I don't know if this is tracking your messages, your comments, how this exactly works. I got to read up on what this new feature is, but if you click on there, you will see the community leaderboard, which right now has Mike Rouse atop that, and we'll see how all that plays out, but it's a new feature of YouTube that I don't really know much about yet. They did send us creators some info on it, but I haven't really read what the hell that's about. So anyway, we got that little leaderboard thing up there now, in addition to the Super Chat leaderboard that sometimes will be shown on the bottom of our watch-alongs and whatnot. But let's do some hellos, like Melissa Hernandez. Good to see you. Spartan Sprinkles is in the house. We got Tatanani. We got Mike Rouse. We got Zane G. What's good, my friend? Good to see Gilbert Arbalo in here, Colin Wright, Red Raven Rucker, Tony is in the house. Love this unlicensed music. You want it, you're welcome to download it. I actually kind of do license it. Epidemic Sound is a service that I pay for. It's not much, 15, 20 bucks a month, something like that. And it allows me to license and use just an insanely vast video library, much, much better than the one that comes with the YouTube side of things. Good to see Rarely Even in here. Thank you for the $5, my friend. Perhaps the reason they called Stephanie and Julie up so quickly is because Mariah May is coming and they want to put the NXT title on her. That's possible. I kind of just mentioned something like that to the effect. It was a really interesting and shocking kind of title loss, I think, for Stephanie Vaquer on Tuesday when she dropped the NXT title to JC Jane. I had mentioned when she faced Jordan Grace that she's not going to drop the title yet. They just put it on her after she beat Julia. Stephanie Vaquer is going to come to the main roster probably pretty soon, but I didn't think it was really time yet. And then a mere 2-3 days later, she drops the title and is headed to the main roster, and she also has a qualifier on Monday night. In terms of where Mariah May goes, we'll be talking about that here in just a second. I do think she could probably run through NXT first. Of course, you're going to have the fans who, she doesn't need to go there and all that stuff, but are those conversations ever productive? You know, like if she goes to NXT, it's not the end of the world. If she bypasses NXT, it's not the end of the world. Nobody should really have too strong of a dog in that fight. I wouldn't worry too much about it where she goes first. Good to see Tatanani, Mike Games version 1. David Brown is here. So is William Cullen. So is Denny Downbad. 5 more from Rarely Even on a retracted message. Ajax Johnson is here. So is Damian Drain. Good to see Ryan Dempsey, Bunkers, LFC, Shell Shock, DJG, Isaac, Ben Espinoza, Ryan Adams, I Am Famous. And 5 more from Rarely Even. Have a feeling they're going to change Mariah's name. That's her AEW name. We can't involve ourselves with that. Well, it's not her AEW name. She was using Mariah May before AEW in Japan. But you don't know. Nobody really knows what the formula is. You know, we've seen that a million times where people come in. Some people get to keep their name. Some people don't. I think it's a case-by-case basis. I think it depends on all of the details contractually with that stuff, whether or not the talent wants to license the name out, whether or not WWE wants to use that name, you know, so it's really weird. There doesn't seem to be one set rule. When you come in, you're going to get your name changed. It just depends. And with Mariah May, who's already made quite the name for herself here in the States and internationally, I would actually keep her name. It wouldn't be, you know, like you're saying that's her AEW name. We can't involve ourselves with that. Well, AJ Styles put 20 years in TNA and they brought him in as AJ Styles, you know, so sometimes they change names, sometimes they don't. We don't really know if they're going to change Mariah May's name or not. I'm hoping they don't, but they changed Ricky Starks to Ricky Saints, but they left Ethan Page alone. You know what I mean? So there's plenty of AEW people, Jade Cargill, Ethan Page, who have used their names. It just depends. Now, Jade Cargill is really Jade Cargill's real name. Ethan Page, that might be his real name. I'm not even really sure. But we don't really know. I'm hoping that she comes in as Mariah May. I think WWE should cash in on her already having notoriety. It's not like they're building a talent from scratch. You know, they should keep her Mariah May, but you really don't know. We're not going to know until she debuts and we see what the hell WWE is going to do. Zane G, thank you for the 5, my friend. Do you see Money in the Bank fading away as Triple H says he's not a fan of the prop? No, I don't. We talked about this. I talked about this a little bit on social media the other day. I did see that. You know, and somebody just made the comment of, well, Triple H is the head of creative. He can just cancel the match. He can just do away with the pay-per-view. It's not really that simple. Just because Triple H has a personal preference on not liking a match, you're going to be killing a concept that's 20 years old now, that is a annual multi-million-dollar moneymaker for WWE. They've made one of the Money in the Bank basically one of their big five. It replaced King of the Ring as like one of the big five. And so you've got your big four, and then you've got Money in the Bank, and everything else is secondary. So that is a big, still very, very popular match concept. It's not like the fans have shown any interest in getting rid of it. Remember a few years back, we heard that Vince McMahon wanted to drop Survivor Series, and people around him were like, Vince, you can't drop Survivor Series. And he changed his mind, and Triple H he might not be a fan of that match, but he has to understand the type of money that brings in for the company and how the fans have grown accustomed over the past 2 decades now to have a briefcase running around. So I think if they faded away Money in the Bank simply off of a personal preference, that is bad business. Now, if there is metrics that are showing that Money in the Bank is not as successful as it once was, fans are disinterested in Money in the Bank, it's not a big deal anymore, fans are kind of indifferent about the ladder matches, and the cash-ins don't mean anything, but cash-ins are still fun. To this day, cash-ins are still very, very fun to anticipate, to think about, to tease. And just because Triple H doesn't like it, I think it would be very, very foolish to drop the entire thing just because you don't like it. Yes, he's the head of creative, but you have to be smart, and you can't just be doing things on a whim. That's what Vince used to do, and nowadays, with WWE being owned by TKO and everything so money driven, Money in the Bank is a money maker. You're not going to drop that. If they do, I'd be really, really surprised. So we will see. 5 more from Rarely Even. Could Ricky Stanks lose his title? Losing his title be a sign that WWE wants him up soon? Yeah, we're going to talk about that. Absolutely. Because we had 2 big title changes on Tuesday. And thanks for the 5, Ryan Adams. This will be the last one. Then we're going to get into the news, and I'll hit the rest of the Super Chats when we're done. If they get rid of Money in the Bank but move the match back to Mania, I would do that. There you go. That might be a little bit more reasonable. I would be in favor of that. Dropping the Money in the Bank pay-per-view and putting the match back on Mania. You got 2 nights of Mania now. Throw the Andre on one night and the Money in the Bank on another. I'd be fine with that. Yeah, moving it to Mania, I would be perfectly fine with, and eliminating the pay-per-view. But then you got to think about the women. Now you're going to have to probably do a women's match on one and the men's on another. Now you got 2 Money in the Bank matches at every WrestleMania. So it might not work anymore moving it to WrestleMania, since men and women both have the matches. So that might not work. If it was just the men still, then I would say absolutely. But now you got to guarantee to put Money in the Bank matches, one on each night. I just don't know how that would go, even though I do kind of like the idea in principle. Anyway, let's get into wrestling news. We got to start with Mariah May. Mariah May, who has been rumored to be leaving AEW ever since around March, was when I think some of these rumors first started popping up and getting on people's radar. And the way she ended her feud with Toni Storm, that just brilliant rivalry they had that spanned, over a year, and with that great match that closed it all off with the end, on the video wall there. And as it turns out, that was the end of Mariah May in AEW, and that was the last time we ever saw her. And we are going to see her in AEW, and what a way to go out. What an absolute way to go out. And this week, she was officially removed from the AEW roster page, and she is expected to join WWE imminently. Now, her contract, from what we knew of in the last couple of days, wasn't officially up, but usually when you're moved off the roster page, that's a clear indicator that you are a free agent. So if her contract isn't technically up right now, it's probably up literally in a matter of days if it's not up already. In terms of her deal with WWE, she is absolutely going to go there. However, no news of a deal has been reported yet, but she will get signed. It will probably be kept somewhat quiet until she debuts, unless it gets leaked that she's been spotted somewhere backstage or whatever. And that's exciting. It's exciting for WWE to get another, major talent coming in who's made a big name for herself. And she was not mistreated in any way by AEW. Of course, the fans are just silly. So, you see a lot of Tony Khan fumbled her. Tony Khan might fumble some things. The one thing he did not fumble was Mariah May. Mariah May could not have been used better and more effectively than she was in AEW. Same goes for Jade Cargill. But with Mariah May, it's a personal dream. WWE banks on that. WWE banks on a lot of these wrestlers who were in their 20s, who grew up watching only WWE, and they have this dream to be a WWE wrestler and a WWE wrestler only. Some wrestlers have those aspirations. Some wrestlers don't. Mariah May clearly does, and a lot of other wrestlers probably have the ultimate dream of making it to WWE, having a WrestleMania moment. And if they have to use AEW to get there, that's unfortunately the nature of business. And it doesn't make Mariah May a bad person because she fulfilled her contractual obligations with AEW. She did a great job while she was there. And now she's making a business and personal career decision to move on and do something else and go somewhere else. That's perfectly legal. So if you're an AEW freakazoid or you're one of my fellow AEW sickos, if you want to feel like less of a douchebag, MAGA-like WWE nut-gargling troll that are all over, social media, try not to act like an unhinged psycho over Mariah May leaving AEW. It's not that big a deal. People are going to jump ship. You have two competing companies. You're going to see people going from one place to another all the time. We've seen that over the past 5 years, and we've seen some big jumps. Cody, Punk, Jade, by this point, I feel like the fans should start getting used to this, and seeing something like this isn't going to be that uncommon. You see, Ricochet going to WWE, going to AEW, Mariah going to WWE, people moving around. That's kind of what makes the business fun. So, of course, she's dead to me now. And, of course, now the AEW sickos are, she was never that good. It's just they're so predictable and unbelievably and breathtakingly one-dimensional, when it comes to the people who are, like, butthurt about this. Just chill, man. Try to show the other side that you can manage your brain chemicals better than them. There is no reason to fly off the rails over something like this. This is what makes the business fun. I'm excited to see where Mariah May makes her debut in the WWE landscape, Raw, SmackDown, NXT. And I'm curious to see what her name is going to be, what she's going to look like, what kind of feuds, who's she going to target. Are they going to tout her previous success? Are they going to call her Mariah May and say that she's a former world champion? Or are they going to change her name and just WWE-ize her? We don't know. It'll be interesting and fun to see how all that plays out. And so I guess we should all give Mariah May an early welcome to WWE. Can't wait to see what she does there and how successful she turns out to be because, I don't think she could have really gotten any higher than AEW. She won the title. She won the title and had a feud, one of the top women's feud that company has ever seen and one of the best in history. So with Mariah May, it almost feels like unlike Jade Cargill. Well, no, Jade Cargill the same. She had that unbelievable undefeated streak, but the two of them coming in, it's like, how can they really even do better? So it'll be interesting to see if they do and how long it takes Mariah May to be on mainstream WWE TV and if she goes to NXT or if she bypasses NXT. Can't wait to see. Welcome to WWE, Mariah May. What a wild business. All right, let's switch gears. Let's switch gears to this Vince McMahon, Janelle Grant lawsuit latest. We had some pretty enormous news break this week regarding that. I would say that this is the biggest news about this lawsuit since it was first announced. We're going on a couple of years now, 3 years almost since Vince was initially outed. And then, of course, he came back, then outed again. So this whole thing has been going on for about 3 years now. And over the past couple of years, the Janelle Grant lawsuit and all of the really, really grotesque details coming out of that in this civil suit where she is suing Vince McMahon, John Laurinaitis, and WWE for, sexual assault, sex trafficking, and all these horrific accusations. And she's got a lot of evidence, specifically text messages from Vince detailing the things that he's going to do and has already done to her. Brock Lesnar was implemented, and a lot of really gross details have been coming out about Vince McMahon. Now, when this suit was first brought up, John Laurinaitis, of course, was a co-defendant with Vince McMahon and the WWE. And Johnny Ace initially claimed himself as a victim, saying that he was coerced and forced by Vince McMahon to do these things. That was what he first said. And then he changed his tune. He changed his tune by then joining Vince's lawsuit against Janelle Grant. Well, the big news this week is that John Laurinaitis has flipped again. So first he claimed that he was a victim, victimized by Vince McMahon. Then he agreed to join Vince's lawsuit and join up with Vince. And now it sounds like he has flipped on Vince once again. John Laurinaitis, Johnny Ace, has been officially dropped from the Janelle Grant lawsuit in exchange for providing evidence against Vince McMahon and the WWE. And holy shit, imagine the evidence that John Laurinaitis must possess. Emails and specifically text messages, the type of things that he's going to be able to provide Janelle Grant's team. I mean, holy crap, this is huge news. This is pretty big. This is not going to end well for Vince McMahon at all, especially now with Johnny Ace providing evidence. And it's clearly just, you call it self-preservation, you call it covering your own ass. John Laurinaitis is just saving his own ass. That's all he's doing. He was going to be on whichever side gave him the best chance to avoid, any consequences here. And I feel like he knows that they're fucked. There's no sense in being on Vince's side. So he cuts a deal. He's dropped from the lawsuit. He's no longer a defendant. All he has to do is supply and provide Janelle Grant's team with all of the dirt and spill the tea. Sing like a fucking canary. And I'm here for it. John Laurinaitis is a piece of garbage. Absolute piece of fucking shit. I don't like that he's going to get away scot-free from this, but he was already the scapegoat. He was already the fall guy when all this started. Everybody knew he was going to be fired, and they tried to kind of make him the fall guy at first, but, it wasn't just him. Vince McMahon is the focal point of this whole thing, and at the end of the day, that's who they want. Now, Janelle Grant's team has insisted that they do not want to settle here. They want to see this thing through. And for everybody who's wondering, this is a civil suit. So Trump can't swoop in and pardon Vince. You see, well, Trump is going to pardon him. People don't know how any of that works. You can't pardon a civil suit. You can't. But criminal charges still could be possible. And if criminal charges do wind up getting filed on Vince, then maybe, sure, Trump could come in and pardon him if he wants. But what I think... Vince McMahon, I would think anyway, that his team of lawyers, they want to do whatever possible to avoid this making it to discovery. So Janelle Grant's team are saying we're not going to accept any settlement, but Vince McMahon is worth $3 billion. It might get to the point where Vince McMahon says, here's $200 million, leave me the fuck alone. And that might be enough. Of course they say, we're not going to settle, but the closer and closer we get to discovery, the higher that potential settlement amount is going to get. And if Vince McMahon knows the things that would come out in discovery, because if they make it to discovery, then that stuff will get out to the public as well. And if John Laurinaitis supplies their team with grotesque details, even more grotesque than we already know, and you have all of these crazy details coming out, even a slop creature like the president might not want to touch that. The White House would be stupid to go anywhere near that, but then again, they're the White House. So for Trump to come in and save Vince after all these details come out, that would be pretty fucking wild. But that's going to be only if criminal charges are filed, which they may or may not be. The civil suit, nothing you can do about that. So what Vince is going to have to decide is if he's willing to let this go to discovery. Because Vince McMahon's team, his lawyer, did issue a statement on the John Laurinaitis news this week, and I quote, "Today's dismissal of John Laurinaitis as a defendant doesn't alter the facts of this case in any way." Oh, really? Vince McMahon never mistreated Janelle Grant. Guys, I just have a question here. Let's say, hypothetically, you take a shit in a woman's hair. Would that qualify as being mistreated? Trying to think. Might not. It's kind of on the line there, Why don't you go out and shit in someone's hair and see if they get mad? Report back to me. Goes on to say that no matter how many press releases her team issues, the truth remains unchanged. As Mr. Laurinaitis' lawyer previously said, Mr. Laurinaitis corroborates Vince McMahon in publicly declaring that Ms. Grant's allegations of sexual abuse and coercion in her complaint are completely unfounded. So they went through the trouble of saying that Laurinaitis has previously said and backed up Vince's story, but they leave out that he originally said, no, I was a victim of Vince. So Laurinaitis has flipped on Vince twice, yet his lawyers highlight the part where he tries to corroborate Vince's story. This is as transparent as fucking glass. It is totally obvious and clear what Laurinaitis is doing, and he is going to provide evidence. Now, in terms of like testifying and things like that, who knows what he's going to say, but if this case makes it to discovery and there's not been some sort of a settlement amount that's been approved or agreed upon, and we start getting the details of this and that starts getting out, then there's probably not going to be much of a settlement, because I think it's going to be about not getting these details out. So I think it's going to be like kind of a game of chicken, I would think. And then Vince McMahon, who is in his 80s and has $3 billion, what the fuck is he going to do with all this money? If you got to give away 10% of it, to make this go away, I don't want to be bothered with this. Here's $100 million. Here's $200 million. Here's $300 million. Go away. They probably will go away. I mean, you give Janelle Grant $300 million. I mean, if I'm Janelle Grant, I'm like, all right, little poo in the hair might have been worth $300 million. So I do, even though Miss Grant's team is adamant that there's not going to be a settlement, I do think there could be a potential for an offer you can't refuse type of thing. Vince McMahon says, whatever I have to pay to keep this information from coming out and prevent discovery in this case, then I will do it. So we will see. But Vince continues to think there's nothing wrong with what he did. And that's, when his lawyers like say these things, and I'm like, it's not like this is just he said, she said. It's not one person's word against another person's word. There are mountains of evidence. You think the team would be going through all of this if they didn't have any evidence? They were just going to roll the dice and just hope that one woman's word is enough to convince, enough people to see this case in her favor. They have evidence. They have real documented evidence that you can't pretend is fake. It's all there. And Laurinaitis is going to provide more. So it just depends on if Vince McMahon wants this stuff to get out or not. Because if he does not want it to get out, then he just needs to pay whatever he needs to pay. And I'd be pretty amazed if he offered a couple of $100 million and they still turned it down. I mean, that would be wild. So I feel like there is a price. Everybody has a price, and I think Janelle Grant has one too, even though they say they don't want to settle. I believe in Vince's case, because these details are so horrific, he will pay a large amount to make all of this go away and for these things never to be brought out into the public. So we will see. We will see. Now, we're not done with the Vince McMahon news, because there's been some really stupid news floating around regarding Vince McMahon as well. And this has to do with him buying back WWE. Yes, I know that sounds stupid, but unfortunately, the IWC is extremely common sense illiterate, and this story got some traction. Where did it come from? It came from dumbass Jonathan Coachman, who I guess on his podcast had mentioned, I'm hearing some things that Vince is interested in buying back WWE. And then you had that Chris Featherstone guy who said the same thing. I'm hearing that Vince McMahon is interested in buying WWE. Where you heard it from is Jonathan Coachman's podcast. That's where you heard it from. Now, that statement might not necessarily be false, because all the statement said is that Vince McMahon wants to buy back WWE. I'm sure he does, but Vince McMahon cannot buy back WWE. It cannot happen. TKO purchased WWE for, I think, just under $10 billion. Vince is worth about $3 billion. So Vince would not be able to buy back WWE from TKO unless he found Elon. If he phoned up Elon, if he's taking a break from one of his googly-eyed ketamine binges, hey, you want to give me $20 billion so I can offer TKO $20 billion to buy WWE, then TKO will sell it to him. Absolutely. If Vince McMahon says, I want to buy WWE for $15 billion, for $20 billion, they absolutely will sell to him. But Vince McMahon does not have $15 billion or $20 billion, and he's not going to be able to find an investor to give him that much money either. So It's not going to happen. But of course, on social media, some people, I wouldn't be surprised if he's already brought it back or already bought back the company. These are people who thought Biden was really Trump in a Biden mask. It's flat earth. Like, Jesus Christ, where did you guys go to school? Come on. He's not buying the company back. It's not going to happen. He can't do it. He can't do it without Elon or Jeff Bezos or somebody like that. He gets one of them guys on his side, and who would want to associate themselves, even people as shitty as them would want to associate themselves with a dirt bag like Vince McMahon. And it amazes me that there is an actual fan base out there that wants that to happen. Number one, thinks it's possible. It ain't. And also wants it to happen. It won't. So I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed for how much traction that story got. What's wrong with fans? Like, what is wrong with people? Who could even read that and even for a second think that that's a possibility? It isn't. But man, you had people just all of a sudden now, of course, everything is a conspiracy to that one very specific type of American person. So, of course, he might have already bought the company back. Oh, really? What makes you think that, Sparky? Your 8th grade education? I don't know. Fucking Jonathan Coachman. So he's an idiot. I don't know what he's heard, but if he's heard that Vince McMahon wants to buy back the company, sure. I'm sure Vince McMahon does want to. That probably is accurate, but he cannot. And when that starts being aggregated and morphed into from Vince McMahon wants to buy back to the company to Vince McMahon is buying back the company, that's the problem with social media. And I've said it a million times. That is why complete dumbasses win elections here, because people just ain't right. People have no common sense whatsoever. And that story floated around on social media for way too long, about 2 days longer than it needed to. Vince ain't buying back the WWE. But he does have a new company. If you guys want to learn as much as you can and read as much as you can about the Janelle Grant lawsuit, all the details, all the updates on that, and business-related things as it relates to TKO, AEW, Vince McMahon, and whatnot, go to Post Wrestling. Brandon Thurston and John Pollock do a terrific job over there breaking everything down. And they had some information on Vince's new company. Now, you combine this news with the news that Jonathan Coachman said, and of course, it gets the really, really, vile portion of the wrestling community all excited that Vince McMahon might buy back WWE. He's not going to do it, but this new company is interesting. Vince McMahon launched a new business venture, forming an investment firm called 14th and I, pursuing opportunities in sports, media, and entertainment. Public filings show McMahon registered 3 limited liability companies in Connecticut on September 20th of last year. 14th and I Holdings, 14th and I Investments, and 14th and I Management. All 3 entities were formed in Delaware and list the same Stamford, Connecticut address as their principal office. McMahon, the former CEO and chairman of WWE, is named as the managing member of at least 2 of the entities, while 14th and I Holdings is listed as a member of the others. Now, what's interesting about the name of this, 14th and I, apparently this is a nod to Capital Wrestling. Capital Wrestling Corporation, which of course was the predecessor to WWE and would become known as WWE. They were headquartered at the corner of 14th and I Streets in Washington, D.C. in the 1950s and 60s when Vince Sr. was leading the company. So this is a little nod to the old Capital Wrestling days, headquartered in D.C. I do like that. There has been no indication that these companies are going to be associated with wrestling per se, but they are an entertainment, sports, and media company that Vince McMahon is now a big part of. So we will see what they try to do. But like, what the fuck, man? Vince is like in his 80s. I don't understand what he's trying to do at this point when you have $3 billion and you are in your 80s. Why are you working? Why are you starting companies? Like, how many years does he have left? Like, what the fuck? So anyway, for fans who might be excited about Vince is going to start his own wrestling company, you know what? Let him. Let him start his own company and let us find out who the true shitheads in this business are, because anybody that would sign up with him, I would have zero interest in their career going forward from that point on. Vince McMahon's starting a wrestling company in his 80s after, 50 years of running his own. It's just weird, and he needs to just fade away, and just live out the rest of your years and leave us the fuck alone. But Vince McMahon does have a new company, but it's not going to have any bearing on WWE or AEW. And even if he wants to start, even if he does dabble in pro wrestling a little bit, I don't know. I mean, Vince was an idiot, for the last, many years running WWE creative. What do we think he's going to do, if he even were to get back into pro wrestling? Just insist that everything's done his way. How good is that product going to be? It's going to suck a pile of donkey dicks. So give it your best shot, Vince. Take a big swing. You've had a lot more failures in your life than you have had successes. Your XFLs, your WBFs, everything else you've ever fucking tried has fallen flat on its fucking face in failure. Except for your couple of good eras, your rock and wrestling, and your attitude that really made you your billions. Without that, you'd be still living in the trailers in North Carolina. So I just don't think that Vince McMahon is ever going to be a threat to our wrestling business ever again. I don't know what his new company is going to do and what the point of it is, but I'm not too concerned about it really affecting my life as a wrestling fan at all. And I'm much more interested in the Janelle Grant lawsuit and how all that's going to shake out, because that is drama-filled and dirty. So anyway, that's the latest on Vince McMahon and John Laurinaitis and WWE. Speaking of WWE, SmackDown last night, not a great show, was 3 hours long. We had previously heard a couple of months back that starting in June, I believe June 6th next week was the date that was thrown out to a lot of people. That was going to be the day that SmackDown was going to return to a 2-hour show. Well, since then, USA Network's been very happy with the length of SmackDown, and they want to keep it a 3-hour show. So SmackDown is not going back to 2 hours. It's going to stay 3 hours every week. And that's mostly due to USA Network being very happy. So, now we got 2.5 hours of Raw. We got 3 hours of SmackDown. We got 2-night SummerSlams coming up. We got 2-night WrestleManias. We got WrestleManias moving cities. We got Rumbles in Saudi Arabia. 4-night extravaganzas. We are so close. We are so close to 4-night extravaganzas. We already have 3-night extravaganzas. We're going to get that an all-in weekend. WWE is going to do a 3-night extravaganza with NXT, Saturday night's main event, and with what was the other one? Their other pay-per-view. What was going on Sunday night? I forgot what the fuck they're doing. Oh, Evolution. Evolution is happening on that weekend. So we're inching ever so closely to CM Punk actually working in the company that has 4-night extravaganzas. You can't even make that shit up. You guys have time to listen to me shit on Rikishi? Apparently Rikishi's got a podcast, and he's dumber than fucking Booker T. So he's all butthurt. This is a quote from his podcast this week regarding Jay Uso in a tag team match at Money in the Bank. Bro, why? Why? I mean, Jay is a world heavyweight champion. He should be standing on his own. They really need to fire creative over there. They really need to fire creative over there. The company that has put the world title on my son, who many fans feel doesn't even deserve that title, they need to fire creative. Rikishi, bro, if they fired creative, your boy wouldn't be world champion. So shut the fuck up. What is it with these old ass wrestlers being idiots? He goes on to say, just book me so I can book my son's matches. You know what I mean? No, I don't know what you mean. You sound idiotic. Shut up. Shut the fuck up, Rikishi. When you were wrestling in WWE in your thong, that was the era of world champions being in tag team matches all the time. I'm pretty sure you probably were in one. Had to be. When all that shit with Rock and Austin was going on and you ran him over, you mean to tell me there wasn't some tag match involving Rikishi and Rock and Austin or something like that where somebody was a world champion or Triple H or something? He worked through that era. In 97, 98, 99, how many times do we see that? World champion Steve Austin winning the tag team championships with The Undertaker or with Mankind or with Shawn Michaels. How many double champions we had in the company at that time. And we've seen tag team matches involving world champions, main event pay-per-views before. These are not rare. This is not weird. There's another champion in that match. I'm not sure if you know this, Rikishi, probably because you couldn't see him, but his name is John Cena, and his title is more valuable than your boy's. He's in that tag match too. Why were you not mad that Cena was in a tag match? Cena should stand on his own. How come you didn't say that? I understand sticking up for your family. I get that. You want to see you want what's best for your boy, but he's world fucking champion. What the hell are you talking about, Rikishi? Like, I don't get the outrage. Now, granted, I don't even need or want a tag team match at Money in the Bank. I'm glad we're getting this and not Travis Scott, but, at the same time, I'm kind of, based on what we saw last night on Smackdown between these four men, I'm just kind of like sort of indifferent on it. So, don't really care about the match per se, but in terms of Jay Uso being in the match, the very act of putting Jay Uso in a tag team match with the other world champion on a pay-per-view, they need to fire creative. I mean, I want to respect legends and everything. I have the utmost respect for, the men and women that paved the way, that I enjoyed watching. I was a big fan of Rikishi. Samoan SWAT team, head shrinkers, even when he was making a difference, even when he was wearing the thong, passing out stink faces like they were candy. But now the washed up asshole with too many fucking opinions that don't make any sense. This is where the Booker T's and the Bubba Rays and stuff, they all start getting like this, and I think that you need to chill and be happy that your son is a world champion, because if you got your wish and they fired creative, your son would not be world champion. So Rikishi, please stop being stupid. Thanks. All right. Hey, NXT call-ups. Let's talk about that. So this past week on NXT, two big title changes. We saw Stephanie Vaquer drop her NXT championship to JC Jane, of all people. Who had that on their radar? Super shocking loss there, especially after she just defended against Jordynne Grace over the weekend and retained. So she then loses to JC Jane on Tuesday. That was fueling a lot of rumors of her main roster call-up. And Adam Pearce announced yesterday on social media that Stephanie would be in a Money in the Bank qualifier on Monday against Liv Morgan and Ivy Nile. So Stephanie is officially now called up after losing the title to JC Jane, so it doesn't look like there's going to be any rematch there. And Ricky Saints dropped the North American Championship to Ethan Page. So a lot of fans are believing and speculating that Ricky Saints is also going to be moved up to the main roster since he dropped his title. And since Jordynne Grace didn't win the NXT title over the weekend in her title shot, she's expected to get called up too. So it sounds like Stephanie Vaquer officially has been called up, but Ricky Saints and Jordynne Grace should be right behind her. And I'm all for that. Let's get Ricky on that main roster and see what he's got. Sink or swim. See what he's really made of. And same goes with Jordynne. I actually fear that Jordynne Grace could have benefited from maybe a little bit more time in NXT, but I think with her, I keep bumping the table. But with Jordynne Grace, the one thing about her is she's a lot like Jade Cargill. A look like that you can't just keep in developmental forever. You gotta get that girl out there because she just looks too much like what WWE wants their stars to look like. Plus, she is very good in the ring. Plus, she's strong as shit. So I'm surprised she came up that quick, but I certainly have no issue with it. And those three coming up, if it turns out to be Saints and Grace following Vaquer, that's awesome. And a lot of fans are speculating is Stephanie and Jordynne Grace leaving NXT so Mariah May can come in. That might be the case. And I think fans need to, like I said earlier, need to not be worried about where she goes. Don't get it just doesn't matter. No matter where you go, fans think it should be the other way. Don't overanalyze this. This is not a big deal. Mariah May will go wherever they want her to go. If she does go to NXT, it's probably going to be on a deal very similar to Stephanie and Ricky and Jordynne Grace. If you realize they came in and they got moved up pretty quick. So just kind of just get them in there, get them a feel for the vibe and the WWE way of doing things just for a little bit, and then boom, right on the main roster you go. I would not feel like that is degrading or an insult to Mariah May whatsoever if she hit NXT first. I don't want her in NXT for a year or anything like that, but if you got to get her in there first, give her the title real quick, or something like that, I'd be fine with it. But if she also comes right to the main roster, also fine with that. It just depends. Penta and Phoenix went right to the main roster. Why would Mariah May not? Just depends. But if she does turn up in NXT, I wouldn't freak out. What are they doing or whatever? I'm more likely to be more upset about whatever name they give her. But I'm hoping they allow her to be Mariah May because I think she's developed a reputation under that ring name already, and they should let her keep it. All right, let's get into last night's Smackdown, shall we? Like I said, by the way, this Monday, AJ Styles and CM Punk will be sharing a ring along with El Grande Americano as they all have a Money in the Bank qualifier on Monday. So that's going to be a really interesting match to see Punk and AJ mix it up for the first time in all those years. I think people are saying like 2004 TNA. Something like that is what the word is on those two guys. That's pretty crazy. And like I said, Liv and Ivy and Stephanie Vaquer in Money in the Bank qualifier on Monday as well. And I'm picking Liv Morgan there. I said last week when she lost to Kairi Sane, I said, doesn't matter. Somebody on Twitter was like, what a way to book her return. Way to go, Baldy, or like upset at Triple H for booking Liv to lose in her big, glorious return. How long was she gone? 3 fucking weeks? Would she have COVID? You know, she just went to go film a movie. What's the big deal? She was gone 3 weeks, 4 weeks. I don't know how many weeks it was. It did not feel like it was a long time, and people are acting like she needed the YouTube Beautiful Day song to fucking return. Stan accounts, they are the most batshit unhinged portion of the audience I've ever seen. And so, of course, this Liv Morgan stan, I just could not even imagine their Google search history. My God. They're all upset, but I'm like, dude, she's going to win her Money in the Bank qualifier next week. She's going to. She's definitely going to go to Money in the Bank. But now she's in there with Stephanie Vaquer. So I feel like Ivy Nile will be taking that pin from either Stephanie or Liv Morgan. And even though I feel like Liv Morgan was absolutely going to win the qualifier, I can already hear the fans now. That's why I'm glad I might not be here for Raw on Monday, because if Stephanie Vaquer doesn't win this, boy, they called her up to the main roster to fumble her. You know, you can already hear them. Like, they're typing already. You can already hear a little, you can already know what they're going to say before they're going to say it. So you're going to have fans mad that Stephanie didn't win. Triple H fumbled her. And then if Liv doesn't win, oh, she lost 2 weeks in a row. And so we're going to have to hear that on Monday. So just prepare yourself. It doesn't matter which one of them girls pins Ivy Nile. That's the conversation you're going to hear. Stephanie stands are going to be mad. Liv stands are going to be It's just so stupid. So anyway, Stephanie is in that match, which is kind of interesting. It doesn't make me feel as confident as I was a week ago to say, oh yeah, Liv Morgan is definitely going to qualify. Since she has that little issue going on right now with Roxanne Perez and some of the tension backstage in the Judgment Day, I could see a finish on Raw where Roxanne shows up and screws Liv. Because she tried to come out and help Liv in that match with Kyrie, and it cost her. But that was kind of more Raquel's fault. So maybe between Raquel and Liv and Roxanne, something happens there that screws Liv over, and Stephanie is able to win. And I think that's pretty likely. But man, I wonder if like they wouldn't do Liv and Roxanne one-on-one at the pay-per-view, would they? Unless Roxanne finds a partner and challenges, Liv and Raquel for the tag titles. But the pay-per-view's next week, so I don't even know how you'd set all that up. So part of me thinks, yes, Liv Morgan is absolutely going to win, but I could also see a scenario where Stephanie wins because of Roxanne and Raquel gumming up the works there for Liv Morgan. We will find out on Monday. All right, in terms of last night's Smackdown, we'll talk a little bit about that. Not a great show, kind of boring. I watched most of it last night when I got home. I had a really late night at work, and I got home, just kind of threw it on as I was making my notes for the podcast, and I watched the entire Logan Paul and Cody segment, watched a couple of the matches in full, and watched, I'd probably say 90% of the show. But luckily, I was busy doing something else. But from what I could tell, I mean, there was a sellout in the arena last night. The crowd was quiet for a lot of it in Tennessee. Shout out to Arrested Development. Anybody know that song, Tennessee by Arrested Development? Good stuff. Brings back memories. All right, Bianca, I should say, opened up the show. They played, I think, the Tennessee Volunteers fight song for her or something like that. She's in the ring. Naomi comes out. Things get heated between the two of them. Naomi even threatens her family, says something about, Bianca and her mom both being in wheelchairs. And Bianca is now, I think maybe Bianca's family was there. So Bianca's starting to get visibly upset. Out comes Jade Cargill to interrupt and kick the crap out of Naomi. And that would lead into the first Money in the Bank qualifier last night. Triple threat, Nia Jax versus Naomi versus Jade Cargill. And the woman that I have picked to win the whole thing won here in her qualifier. You got to qualify before you get in the match. Luckily, Naomi did. Kind of an interesting kind of finish. It didn't look great. Jade took Nia Jax's Annihilator, but then Naomi came in from behind Nia and tried to crucifix her over, but it was just wonky. And finally, she got her shoulders down and was able to get the pin, but it didn't look terrific. But I didn't care. I love Naomi, big Naomi fan, loving this heel version of Naomi. I couldn't stand babyface Naomi. Couldn't give two shits about the glow. Just didn't care about her. Completely indifferent to her existence. But man, this heel run, really highlights the good things about Naomi. And fucking loving her. I love all three of those women. Nia Jax too. I always try to make a point in every podcast to put over how much I have enjoyed Nia's run since coming back. I used to couldn't stand her either. For a whole litany of reasons. But, man, since she came back, Triple H really understands how to properly use Nia Jax. And this match was pretty good, and Naomi got the win. Happy for her. We had JC Mateo defeating R-Truth. I love that he's JC Mateo because I'm pretty sure that gear he had with the JC, that's his Jeff Cobb gear. He can just keep it because the initials are the same. So Mateo, I think he won with that cool-looking power slam thing that he does. Nothing much to say about that match, but I think Solo was out there, and they would make their presence known a little bit later on. And then, of course, we had the return, or not the return, but we had the appearance of the Wyatt Six. You could almost see this coming because we had a big one of those mass promo segments that kicked off with the Street Profits, followed by Fraxium, followed by DIY, followed by the Motor City Machine Guns. And when you look at just those four teams alone, you're like, damn, what a division. That is a sexy tag team division just with those teams alone. You still got Pretty Deadly and whoever the hell else on that brand, and you compare that to Raw, and it's ice cream and horse manure. There's no comparison, my God. So, of course, everybody's in the ring. They're hashing out their aspirations for title shots and whatnot. Typical stuff there. Lights go out, come back up. The Wyatt Six is in the ring. They swarm, they attack, they beat the hell out of everybody. And I guess that was them serving notice to the entire tag team division pretty much. And with all those great teams in the tag team division, the titles are probably going to go to the Wyatt Six next. Probably finally putting some gold on them. We'll see how far that goes. Maybe we're looking way ahead here. We're going to talk about the Damian Priest promo in a minute. He called out Jacob Fatu. If they were to do something like the Wyatt Six, who would it be? Maybe Loomis and Gacy. I guess Loomis and Gacy would go after the tags, right? Then maybe you can have Nikki Cross go after Zelina Vega for that SmackDown United States Championship. And then you can have Uncle Howdy, Bo Dallas, perhaps target Damian Priest, who by then is the men's United States champion. So maybe they're going to go and just try to throw a bunch of belts in this faction here, give them a lot of gold to, make them strong or whatever. That might be the direction they're going in, and maybe starting with the tags, because now that you got Nikki Cross in there, they have secondary titles now, so she can just beat Zelina. They're clearly giving Zelina this run just to give it to her, so we can end it any time. So, have Nikki win the belt, perhaps even Bo Dallas, maybe at SummerSlam wins the belt. I don't know. And put some gold on the Wyatt Six, but sounds like tag team gold is what they're going to target first, and I guess that will leave Eric Rowan, if he's the one beltless guy, is just kind of the muscle in that group. We had Los Garza picking up a win. They took on Rey Fenix and Javon Evans, who made his main roster debut, so now he can run right to social media and tweet Ricochet and tell him that he wrestled in front of 14,000 people. Should make him happy. We had Ethan Page, the NXT North American title holder, on commentary, guest commentary for this match. So kind of cool to get a little taste of Ethan Page on the main roster. It's probably WWE giving a little test to that thing as well. He got, he interfered in this match and attacked Rey Fenix and Evans, allowing Los Garza to hit their finisher on Javon Evans for the win, and got the victory there. Zelina Vega picked up a win over Alba Fire. You had Chelsea Green out there, nursing her broken nose, and she had the face mask on. Poor kid. She was all busted up. Code Red for the win here. It looks like they're just giving Zelina some successful title defenses before she inevitably drops it, and I think she should drop it to Nikki Cross. That's my pick. Then it's time for a Damian Priest promo. He talks a little bit about finishing off his deal with Drew McIntyre, still says that he still hates his guts, and then goes on to talk about Jacob Fatu. He said the most badass champion in the company right now, the U.S. champion, Jacob Fatu, they've got unfinished business, and basically he's coming for him. That could be fun. Jacob and Damian Priest, I'm into that. And I could see Damian Priest beating him for the title since they've already set up this internal dissension and struggle with Solo and JC Mateo and Fatu. So, kind of like the Liv Morgan situation I mentioned earlier, there's plenty of people that can kind of screw that up for her, just like plenty of people that can screw that up for Jacob. So even with Jacob, even a former world heavyweight champion like Damian Priest, you might not even want someone as credible as Priest beating Jacob clean. So you get you get Solo out there and you get Cobb out there screwing things up. That might be what they wind up doing to get the belt off of him, leading into our Jacob and Solo feud finally. But Priest says his piece, starts to leave, and then out comes Jacob Fatu for his match, and the two had a little face-off in the aisleway. So then it is another Money in the Bank qualifier. It's Jacob Fatu versus Andrade versus Carmelo Hayes, and like I said a minute ago with Solo and Mateo, they were out there causing issues for Fatu. Jimmy Uso also showed up, but Andrade was able to hit his finisher on Carmelo Hayes for the win after Solo and Mateo kind of distracted Fatu. Carmelo, that I think, drop kicked Fatu in his back. He flew out of the ring, and that allowed Andrade to hit his finisher on Hayes. And Andrade has qualified for Money in the Bank. I'm glad he's in this. He is not winning it, but I'm glad that he's in it. At least he gets a pay-per-view match. Good for Andrade. So that just leaves, I think, one more spot left in the men's match, and that's going to be determined on Monday night in that Punk, Grande Americano, and AJ Styles match. And I'm hoping that Punk wins. I think Punk, we talked about this on Monday, I think Punk and Rollins need to be in that match together. One of them either needs to win it or they need to cancel each other out. And help me out. What are we looking at for the qualifiers? I don't have that pulled up at the moment. LA Knight, right? Andrade, Rollins, who else? Why don't I know? Oh, yeah. Here we go. It's Penta. Penta, Solo, Rollins, Knight, now Andrade, and then Punk or AJ or El Grande will be the 6th. For the women, we've got Julia, Roxanne, Alexa Bliss, Rhea Ripley, and Naomi. And they will be joined by the winner of Morgan and Vicaire and Ivy Nile on Monday. There we go. Just wanted to make sure I had that set. All right, and finally, this final segment last night on SmackDown was the big four-way promo battle between John Cena, Logan Paul, and Cody Rhodes and Jay Uso. It starts out with Cody. He then brought out Jay Uso, who, after a couple of restarts of his music, was immediately interrupted by John Cena. Cena goes off on the two of them on the mic, calls Cody desperate and calls Jay lazy, puts over how good Logan Paul is and how he has the vision and all that stuff, and he has the social media following to back it up and whatnot. Out comes Logan Paul. And after the four guys do some shit talking, Jay and Cody, they want to fight right now. Let's do it right now. And it's funny, Logan Paul was down. All right, Logan Paul was down, but John Cena didn't want to do it. And Logan's looking at Cena kind of like, come on, let's go. And Cena didn't want to, and there was this tense moment between the two. And right off the bat, before we even get to the tag team match, these two guys have problems. And Cody gets on the mic and says, what are you guys arguing about? You're going to go back there and polish his peacemaker? Which is a pretty funny line. And then the brawl breaks out. Jay and Cody get the best of it. They run off Cena and Logan. They retreat. And I don't know if they're going to do a segment between these four guys on Raw or if we're just going to see it next week on SmackDown on the go home. But they don't really have much time else to do anything other than this. So we'll see that we'll get one more segment between these guys, I'm sure, next week. And I think that Cena and Logan will probably get the best of it. Because if they're already having issues between Cena and Logan, how are they going to win the match against two guys who are friends and former WWE Tag Team Champions together? And they're no strangers to having libations on the bus together. I'm not sure if Logan Paul and John Cena really hung out like that. So right now, my early prediction is I'm going to be picking the good guys, Cody and Jay, to get the win here, and I hope they do. We will be doing Money in the Bank predictions later on this week, probably Thursday if I had to take a guess. And that was pretty much it for SmackDown. I mean, aside from the Money in the Bank qualifiers, nothing really to talk about on the show. Pretty typical stuff. And honestly, same goes for Dynamite this week. It was the follow-up. It was the fallout from Double or Nothing, so that was going to be very interesting. And I got to give them major credit for their big 2 matches at All In. I'm very intrigued. Now, we're 7 weeks away, so that intrigue has to hold up. Tony Khan has to keep me intrigued. But based on how they set it all up between Hangman, Swerve, and Ospreay, this desperate attempt by Ospreay to keep these guys, to keep everybody on the same page, knowing that's the only chance they have to take down Moxley, and this dream match, Tony Storm and Mercedes Moné, finally we're going to get this match, and we got the first little face-off between those two in the ring as well. Outside of that, it was an okay Dynamite, some blood and some broken noses, but all in all, decent show, but probably not great. But I really did love the opening and the ending, because that bookended, the 2 big All-In matches. Their stories really bookended the show here, and it opened up with Hangman Page. He's out first, and he's talking about his win over Will Ospreay and whatnot. He's joined by Swerve Strickland, and Swerve and Hangman still, felt like they're coming around on each other, although they still don't like each other. And Swerve winds up showing the video on the screen of right after Dynasty, after the Bucks costed Swerve his title match. They were out on Dynamite, and they said that they did it for Hangman Page. And Swerve wants to know if he's in on it, and Hangman calls him a dumbass and says, no, dude, if I wanted to screw you, I would screw you out of the title right to your face, because I've done it before. And as a matter of fact, at Dynasty, when I was out there, I was actually thinking about helping you. So this brings out Ospreay, Will Ospreay, who's the most non-sore loser, gracious in defeat guy you could ever find, comes out, and he's trying to make peace between these guys. And he does this was a really, really, really good segment. And Ospreay does a really good job of kind of laying out the importance of this. Moxley's reign of terror has got to come to an end. We've seen everything the Death Riders has done since October. We should know by now that the only chance we have to unbriefcase that championship belt is for us to be on the same page. And those are your top 3, not only stars in the company, but baby faces in the company. All trying to take down the Death Riders. This is what you want. This is Sting and Luger and Savage trying to take down the NWO. That's what you want. You want your top stars going after your top faction. And Moxley's held that AEW championship hostage now since October. And we still don't know if Tony Khan had an original end game in mind, and he's changed it to Hangman Page beating Moxley at All In, or if Hangman Page has been the plan all along, or if Tony Khan's original plan is the plan all along, and he's waiting for Darby, and they're going to do it at Wrestle Dream in October and give Moxley a year run with that title. I really hope that's not the case. I feel like fans are very much interested in this possibility of Hangman Page winning, and like I've said before, if there is some other end game here, like a lot of people have brought up the Darby stuff, there's nothing that they could do, in my opinion, as a fan watching this, and tell me in the chat if you agree or disagree, there's nothing that Tony Khan or AEW could do that would be better than giving Hangman the title in the main event of All In Texas. Putting Moxley's run to an end there. At your biggest show of the year, stadium show, after all this time off, what could you do that would outshine a moment like that? And please don't tell me Darby winning in Seattle. Nobody gives a shit that Darby is from Washington. It would not make a damn bit of difference if Darby wins the title in Washington in an arena. That would not be a better moment than Hangman winning it All In. I'm all for Darby winning the title, but let's not wait for him, because that would just be fucking ludicrous. Unless at All In, we actually don't get that match as the main event. If Hangman and Moxley aren't the main event, I think a lot of fans are going to be very disappointed in that. You also have to take in consideration it's a daytime show. It's going to be running head-to-head with NXT, by the way. And there's a Saturday night's main event later on that night. Maybe Tony Khan wants more of a Sunday night prime time, or like a normal pay-per-view time to do his big title change, a nighttime show. So he's doing something else here. But like I've said, if AEW runs another one of those bloodline finishes and Moxley wins the same way Roman wins all the time, the fans are just going to lose it. They're already getting pissed. They were flying off the rails in February when Edge didn't win. Who the hell wanted Cope to win? I didn't. But fans are so sick of Moxley, they put it on fucking Big Bird. They don't care. So now you're asking the fans, they've waited this long. Now you've set them up with an even better opportunity. I'm glad we didn't get Cope and Samoa Joe if it means we're going to get Hangman at All In. So if you screw us out of that again, Tony Khan, that might do irreparable damage, because you've got a chance here. WWE has been acting like asswads all year long. They seem really turned off by the mere existence of us fans. Some of the things they said and did over WrestleMania weekend, jacked up ticket prices, watered down 3-hour shows, 4-night extravaganzas, all this stuff going on that WWE is really kind of, they're turning the corner, starting to turn the fans off a lot here. You got an opportunity to capitalize on the fans kind of getting a little bit annoyed with WWE. Obviously, WWE's McDonald's, they're still doing tremendous business. They had 14,000 people in the building for Smackdown last night, but that doesn't mean the product and the show is necessarily going to reflect that. And the more and more fans get kind of turned off by one company, the better chance the other company has of grabbing some of those fans. This is part of the fun of competition. We saw this with AEW. They had a major storm to weather there a couple of years ago when they lost CM Punk and Cody, and they weathered that storm. Felt like they couldn't get any lower there for a little while, but now they're more on the upswing, and they're in a situation now where the last thing they need to do is make some sort of stupid booking decision, and if they were to follow through with All In and not put the title on Hangman Page, I think you're really, really going to upset every member of your audience. There's a lot of people who do support and back up the Death Riders angle. I don't think it's as bad as maybe everybody else does, but it's not my favorite thing AEW's ever done, but I can't appreciate the good in it. And there are things about Jon Moxley and the Death Riders that I do like. It's just the angle overall is more than ran its course, if you ask me. And I think that the majority of the fans don't think the way I do and think the way a lot of people do. And they're more just thinking of just get the belt off of Moxley. We're done. And you got a stadium show, biggest show of the year, with your most over babyface in the ring against this champion. How do you not do this? So it's going to be interesting. If Tony Khan dares not put the belt on Hangman Page, it's going to be a really interesting weekend. By the way, I've made plans to be here for everything. So we'll be here for All In. We'll be here for Saturday night's main event. We'll be here for Evolution. That whole damn circus of shows all weekend long we'll be here for. And I'm curious to see, what we're going to talk about. Does Tony Khan think of it along the lines of, I don't want to put the belt on Hangman and have this big championship win for him, one of the biggest in our company, that's going, and then just an hour later, WWE runs a show, and then the next night they run another show. I don't want Hangman's win to be buried under whatever WWE does. But it's only a Saturday night's main event. It's probably going to be Goldberg's last match. Those are going to be the two big stories of the day, Hangman winning the world title and Goldberg retiring. Maybe Tony Khan's worried that Goldberg retiring will overshadow the buzz of Hangman Page winning the championship. You got to at least think about that. I would like to think that's not the case. I would like to think that Tony Khan isn't going to hold off on changing the belt here because he doesn't want to be overshadowed by Goldberg, but shit, WWE, these assholes and their counter programming, WWE doesn't care about AEW. Oh, they don't? I beg to differ. All this counter programming bullshit, Tony Khan might have to alter his booking based on that. It just depends. But even with going head-to-head with NXT, even with Saturday night's main event, even with Evolution the next day, I'm still doing it. I'm still putting the belt on Hangman Page. You absolutely have to. You absolutely have to. We had also on Dynamite, we had like an intergender 6-person match. Moxley, Marina Shafir, and Gabe Kidd. They defeated Willow Nightingale, Mark Briscoe, and Speedball Mike Bailey. Fun little 6-person action there. Ricochet in a backstage little vignette or segment reveals that he's looking for a faction. So he wants some backup. He has gold aspirations, or aspirations of gold, I should say, in the company, and he's looking for some backup. So we've got a lot of factions, in the company. And if Ricochet was going to start a faction, God, I feel like Ricochet would be, he should be where MJF is, trying to use the Hurt Syndicate as his backup. And if Ricochet is going to try to form a group and be the leader of it, then I feel like it's going to have to be guys on the roster that are lower on the card than him. So it's not going to be a very strong-looking faction, but apparently he's looking for a faction to help him secure some championship gold. And I think maybe what I would do at this point, I love Kyle Fletcher, and he did have a TNT championship match on the show, which we'll talk about in a minute, but I might have Ricochet be the one to take the belt off of Adam Cole, because there is the Paragon. So maybe Ricochet finds some backup, and it's Ricochet and his crew versus the Paragon, and Ricochet eventually takes the title from Adam Cole, and maybe they can recreate that great springboard moonsault super kick spot from 10 years ago in NXT. Crazy stuff. Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford, they defeated Anna Jay and Harley Cameron. And this was pretty nasty for Harley. She took a header on the steel steps and got a bloody nose, possibly a broken nose. So we might have the two, lovely women, Harley Cameron and Chelsea Green, rocking busted noses. So hopefully Harley is okay. After taking that shot to her face, she also took a doomsday device, which was the finish. Megan and Penelope hit that on Harley for the win. And all the best to Harley Cameron. Or I'm sorry, Megan and Penelope hit that on Harley for the win. And all the best to Harley and her busted up face. We had a debut as well on Dynamite this past Wednesday. Jamie Hayter was in the ring for an interview with Renee Paquette to talk about her loss at Double or Nothing. And the lights went out. They came back on, and Tekla has arrived. The toxic spider. We've seen the spider come down a couple of times. And some fans were commenting that she got no reaction at all. Really? That's crazy. It's almost as if she has not been on American TV before. What a coincidence. Jesus, fans. My God. I thought it was a pretty cool debut for her, and she attacked Jamie Hayter, took her out. That's the first person she's targeting, and Excalibur tried to give us a few details on her. Would have been nice for a video package or whatever fans like to say, but we're probably going to still get a video package, so just chill. We'll get one. AEW will explain who she is. And I thought, even though maybe the fan reaction was lacking a little bit, I still thought it was a pretty successful debut in my mind. I mentioned that Adam Cole versus Kyle Fletcher TNT Championship match, which was added, I swear, late in the day on Wednesday. I don't remember hearing anything about this prior to Wednesday, so I was surprised that they were booking that match because I would actually like to see Kyle Fletcher win the TNT title. But based on how quickly this match was added, I just didn't really see it being possible, and it wasn't. Josh Alexander interfered in that, causing the DQ. Cole gets the win via disqualification. Also, there was a really scary spot in that match where Kyle Fletcher went to, I guess, apron bomb, which is just a stupid move to be doing in the first place, apron bombing Adam Cole, but he comes down short, and it looked like he had smacked the back of his head. This is a guy that's dealt with problems with concussions in recent history, and it looked like he smacked the back of his head on the apron, but when you looked at the replay, he missed it or grazed it. Wasn't as bad as it looked, but could have been very, very bad and a very dumb spot to do so recklessly. I'm a Kyle Fletcher fan. I think this kid's got a humongous future. I'm a big fan, but that was very reckless, especially when you're holding someone like Adam Cole. You got to be careful with that boy. Just throwing him out there all willy-nilly for him to fend for himself. He's lucky he didn't get seriously injured there. So very scary and boneheaded spot there by Fletcher. We also had Brody King defeating Josh Alexander. Josh Alexander got busted open too. There was some blood on this show. So this was a qualifying match for this four-way qualifier for the TNT title. There's going to be a four-way match for the four-way match for the international title at Fyter Fest. So they are doing qualifying matches for that. One of them was on Wednesday, Brody King defeating Josh Alexander, and two more of them are tonight on Collision, which I'll read you the lineup here in just a minute. And then in the final segment of AEW Dynamite, we had Toni Storm and Mercedes Moné face-to-face for the first time, I thought, for an introductory segment. Still got another month and a half to book this thing, or to build this thing, I should say. I thought it was good. Mercedes said her piece. I much prefer Toni Storm on the mic. I just think she's tremendous. And she talks about Mercedes being the greatest women's wrestler, but how she is timeless. Just a good interaction between both of them. There was a little handshake there and a little neck sniff by Toni Storm. And then both women go for their finishers. Mercedes goes for it first. Toni after. Mercedes scoots out and escapes. And a little tease of physicality, but we didn't really get it there. So it's going to be hard to top Toni Storm and Mariah May, the things that they were doing. But I am looking forward to this. And I just hope that they can do something here to increase the heat, turn up the heat on this segment, and I think the promo battles are going to be fun and good, but you're also going to need some physicality, and you're going to need a contract signing and whatnot, and I think that match is every bit as big as Moxley and Hangman. That's why if Tony Khan doesn't want to do the title change at All In, he's got options for that main event. Toni Storm and Mercedes could easily main event All In. You could also have Okada and Kenny main event All In if they do that unification like we're expecting. So it doesn't have to be, Hangman and Mox, but my God, it better be. It better be. Here's what we have on Collision tonight. We have Sky Blue, one-on-one with Mina Shirakawa. I mentioned those that Fyter Fest four-way, so we have the other two qualifiers for that. It's going to be Mascara Dorada versus Hechicero and Claudio versus Commander. So those are your two Fyter Fest qualifiers. The winners of those matches will join Brody King to take on Kenny at Fyter Fest. We've got Okada taking on Anthony Bowens in an eliminator match for the Continental Championship, so we'll see how that goes. Also, the Callis family will be taking on the Paragon. El Faccion Ingubernable will be taking on Top Flight and AR Fox. The Gates of Agony will be in action, and we will also hear from FTR, who made some history at Double or Nothing, apparently becoming the winningest tag team in AEW history. That's big. Congrats to them. So, all right, that pretty much does it for my news. I didn't think today would be a super long podcast, but came up a little early anyway, just to make sure we had enough time. I know we got a lot of super chats to get to, so we will do that right now and see if there's anything else you guys want to talk about before we get out of here. Let me go to my master list since I think I have lost them. Bear with me one moment. Let's get the super chats up. There we go. All right, let's knock out these few from Rarely Even. Thank you for the 5. I guess WWE was ultimately where Mariah always wanted to be. She left AEW abruptly, but an opportunity came to join the Big Show, and she took it. She didn't really leave abruptly. Her contract was up. I mean, we've heard about this for months, so it wasn't abrupt. It's not like we learned of this yesterday. We knew about this in March, that Mariah May was probably bouncing out of the company. So her contract was up, and she left, which we're going to see frequently when you have competing companies. 5 more from Rarely Even. How is Mariah May going to look? She's going to look hot, Greg. Well, obviously that, but I'm curious. I don't think much is going to change in her appearance. She's going to be blonde, probably wear some of the similar things that she always wore. My biggest question is her name. What's she going to do about her name? And we're going to get a Mariah May and Tiffany Stratton match one day, probably pretty soon. That's going to be interesting. Thank you, Ryan Adams, for the 5. Thanks, dude. The biggest surprise about Mariah was that she had a 2-year deal with no options, right? She was able to get that deal for herself. Because normally if you did a 2-year deal, you would probably have an option for a third that Tony Khan definitely would have picked up on her, and then she'd be sitting on her ass for a year waiting to get out of there. So I'm glad that she was able to secure that deal for herself because it allowed her to not be Miro'd or blacked or Starked or whoever else, you can kind of tell they're leaving, so they're just benched for a year. She put herself in a position to where she wasn't a victim of that. Good on her. Zane G, very generous $20 drop. Appreciate that, my friend. So, Greg, you're saying Ace, with enough evidence, he can be acquitted. If Brock Lesnar was smart enough and have him do the same thing as Johnny has done, it can be a loophole for a possible WWE return. Well, there's nothing to really be acquitted of because this is a civil suit. And so Brock isn't a defendant. Brock isn't a part of, well, he's been named in the lawsuit, but he's not being sued. He's not a defendant in the case. He was named as an individual, and so there's some nasty details in there about him, and he is attached to it. But that's it. So WWE could bring him back if he wanted. There's nothing that he could offer. There's nothing that he would give Janelle Grant's team because he's not on the hook for anything. He's already been named. You can't unname him from the lawsuit, So what we already heard about him can't be taken away. Now, if he was a defendant, then yeah, I'll show you every text message I ever got from Vince if it keeps me, out of this lawsuit. But he's not a part of it. He's just named. So I don't think we have to really worry about Brock. And I think with a WWE return, I don't know. It just depends. I mean, I wouldn't say it's out of the question because they bring Hulk Hogan out there to peddle his shitty piss water beer and to get booed out of the building. Think of the unapologetic racist piece of shit that man is. They bring him out there. So why not Brock if that's the case? Why would one really necessarily be worse than the other? But the publicity, the blowback from that, would it be worth what Brock could give you? I would have loved to see Brock, leave the WWE the right way and have a retirement and be beat by somebody or whatever. But, being a part of that might have ended his WWE career. So it just depends. There might be an amount of time that goes by. Maybe WWE waits until the entire Janelle Grant thing is settled and done and gone. And only then will they entertain the idea of bringing Brock back. We don't really know. But it's not going to be, it wouldn't be a situation where he would do what Johnny Ace did because he's not a defendant. Ryan Adams, bro, thank you so much. $50 drop from our boy, Ryan Adams. Raquel is going to mess up and cost Liv. Then at Money in the Bank, when Roxy is about to grab the briefcase, Raquel could cost her, thinking she did something nice, but it actually makes Liv mad, while Finn is being messy, smiley, uncle enjoying his work. Finn's enjoyment in all of this is really funny. He is just almost like psychotically happy about it. He's really happy that all of this drama is going down. Yeah, I did forget that Raquel is in the match. So, maybe Liv or Raquel come out there to try to screw her over. But yeah, I think something's going to happen there with Raquel or Roxanne in the Liv match. However, now it does make me wonder why they didn't have Liv lose to Kyrie. I had no problem with her losing to Sane on Raw because, in my mind, she was going to win her qualifier. But now with Stephanie Vaquer, there's a really good chance she might not win that. And if it turns out to be Raquel costing her, that might cause problems in their championship run. And maybe they want to have that run its course. Maybe that's what this is all about. Maybe having Raquel kind of inadvertently, screw over Liv Morgan, that puts them in position to maybe get the belts off of them so Liv can concentrate more on singles championships because, don't forget, you got underneath titles now too. So they might want to throw her back in the mix there in either the world title situation or if they move her to SmackDown. And like we talked about over the last couple of weeks with WWE just randomly kind of calling people up now, we saw Julia go over to SmackDown. We had a feeling Stephanie Vaquer would be on Raw now that she is. We're probably going to see a couple of other call-ups. Between this and that transfer portal crap they did a few months back, it doesn't sound like we're going to need a draft again. And that's great because the drafts are so stupid. So just doing this, if you need to shuffle your rosters around, just having the GMs work out deals or just make random NXT call-ups or do transfer portals a couple times a year, that's all you need. You don't need a draft. And I feel like with Stephanie just coming up to the main roster, that pretty much solidifies we're not going to get one this year. And I'm glad we're getting no draft. Drafts are dumb. 5 more from Zane. I just thought about Gunther canceling Jay Uso, screwing him at the pay-per-view with the title match on Raw next week. Yeah. So Uso and Gunther have the match after Money in the Bank. So that's why I feel like Jay and Cody will win, or they might lose at Money in the Bank, and then Jay can beat Gunther on Monday. Although you got to wonder about Goldberg too. Like if they are going to do his retirement match on that Saturday night's main event on All In Weekend, then he's got to start setting that up. So I feel like that's where that June 9th title match, or that's where that's going to be set up, is on that June 9th title match. Jay and Gunther, and somehow Goldberg is going to get involved in that. And that'll set up the Saturday night's main event match for July. I could see Jay Uso winning both. He's the world champion. Why not have him and Cody win at Money in the Bank? Because then Cody's going to, drop 2 matches in a row, after coming back, lost at WrestleMania. Now he's going to lose his first match back as well to John Cena. I guess that would all be fine if it means that Cody's going to wind up beating John Cena for the title, which I believe he is. But yeah, I think Gunther making an appearance in that tag, I don't think he needs to. He might. You might be right, Zane, but I think that why would Gunther need to come out there? What does he need to do? There's no title on the line. Jey Uso is in no danger of dropping the title. So why would he want to come out and maybe get a piece of him to get an early unfair advantage? Maybe. But I almost think that the type of person Gunther is, he would just stay in the back and watch. Why would he even want to run out there? But if he did, we'd get an interaction with him and John Cena, perhaps, and even him and Logan Paul might be kind of fun. Well, we got one of them already between those two. So, yeah, Gunther showing up, maybe. But either way, I feel like Jay will retain over Gunther on June 9th. 2 more from Ryan Adams. Hangman Mox feels like Roman Cody, Mania 39 vibes. Well, which one are they going to do? With Mox and Hangman, which WrestleMania do we get? Do we get WrestleMania 39 or do we get WrestleMania 40? Right now, I feel like both are a possibility. I'm hoping it's 40. It needs to be 40. And $2 from Rodrigo. Thanks, dude. Imagine Britt Baker debut in WWE one day in NXT. I could see Britt eventually, whenever her contract situation is over with AEW, her making the jump. Absolutely. We've got 5 more from Ryan. If there isn't a good WWE or WCW pay-per-view for the watch-along, I suggest TNA Slammiversary 06. It's on YouTube. Everyone could watch. I'm into that. Maybe for next week. We already have tomorrow set up. It's going to be Great American Bash 1998. But next week, Slammiversary 06, it's on YouTube. I'm open to watching YouTube videos and pay-per-views that are available on YouTube. That would make it even easier. I can just give you guys the link down there and you can follow along. Super easy. I'm into that possibility, Ryan. 5 more from Zane. Would Abaddon be WWE bound following AEW release? I didn't read all of Abaddon's statement. I wasn't under the impression that she was released. I don't think AEW really does releases. I think her contract is up and it wasn't renewed. That's what I think. I could be wrong. But is she WWE bound? Maybe. I mean, I like Abaddon. When I think of Abaddon, I'm like, you got to put her in Wyatt 6 if you did anything, but you're probably going to have Alexa Bliss being a part of that. So I feel like Abaddon coming in as the character she is might be a little bit hard to do with some of those characters kind of already existing in the company. I feel like she would be, her and Nikki Cross in the company at the same time. Oh, what a tag team that would make. So maybe Abaddon could come in, but if she did, they might have to completely change her up. Not really sure. I don't expect to see Abaddon in WWE, unfortunately, even though I like her. 5 more from Rarely Even. I think Tony let Mariah out of her deal. No, he didn't. I think Tony let Mariah out of her deal. He said, thank you for everything. Go get your money. No, I don't think so. She signed a 2-year deal, and it's in the summer of 2023. It's now the summer of 2025. So when you're this close, you're not going to why are you going to let her out like a week? I suppose he could, but I don't think that's the case. I think Mariah May's deal is running all the way through. Her contract is probably just up as we speak, or is about to be coming up in the next couple of days or next couple of weeks, or, maybe even another month or so. But based on her being moved to the alumni page, that's usually an indicator of her being a free agent. I doubt now. She did great for Tony Khan in AEW. Tony Khan very well could let her out of her contract early, but I don't even think that's the case. Might be. Thank you for that, Juliet. Good to see you. Appreciate the $2. R.I.P. Loretta Swit, a.k.a. Hot Lips Houlihan. I'm old enough to remember MASH. I remember the final episode. I was just a wee little guy, cute as a button, but real little. My parents used to watch MASH. I never got into MASH. I never cared about it, but she was a legendary character on that show. She was like in her 80s. Crazy. 5 more from Rarely Even. If Moxley went back to WWE ever, would he be Dean Ambrose or would he want to be John Moxley? I don't know. I mean, if he went back to WWE, I believe he absolutely would want to be John Moxley. But would WWE want that? But Moxley would never go back there unless he got that negotiated in. He wouldn't even sign. Hey, if you want me, I'm John Moxley. Fuck that Dean Ambrose stuff. And that could work. I mean, what's his face? Spears. He didn't come back as Ty Dillinger, did he? So I think that if Moxley came back, he would probably be allowed to be Moxley because he's a 4-time world champion. He went on to, be one of the top stars in WWE's most direct competition. He would not want to come back there and be Dean Ambrose again. He had much more success, as Moxley than Ambrose. And if I was Mox, I would want to be Mox. So yeah, if we ever do, and I'd never say never, if we ever do see Moxley in WWE again, I think he's going to be Moxley. Absolutely. The Juliet has hooked up Todd Anderson with a channel membership. Thank you for passing that out. Welcome to the family, Todd. WWE needs to do Forbidden Door with each other in WWE and AEW in 2026. Talk about money, yeah. I don't think that's ever going to happen. But the two companies will do their own versions of Forbidden Door with other companies, domestically and internationally. But I don't think they're ever going to work one together. WWE would never have a reason to. Yes, I 100% agree. We're probably not going to see Brock back, but if we did, it ain't going to happen until the lawsuit stuff passes. You can't bring him back now and then have all of that stuff continue on and more news, being broke. And then, if it does get to discovery, if it does get to trial, all that stuff, they're not going to want Brock around for that. So, Brock's going to be sitting at home until this thing passes. All right. I think that is kind of it for my notes and whatnot. So I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. Thank you so much for being with us today. If you don't mind, anybody who hasn't smashed that thumbs up button, if you don't mind doing that for me on your way out the door, make sure you are here tomorrow. Join us for WCW Great American Bash 1998. This is a fun time. This would have been like a month before Goldberg won the championship in the company. So interesting show. I was looking at the card last night on Wikipedia, and there's all sorts of crazy matches on this thing. So we are going to be watching that tomorrow night, Sunday night watch along, Great American Bash. Thanks again for being here this afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday night, and I'll be catching you tomorrow for the watch along. Cannot wait. Peace.